Once firmly planted in the realm of the military, drones now appear poised to change our daily lives. And joining us now for more on these changing developments, Jesse Hirsh. She's the technology commentator and founder of MetaViews Media Management. And Jesse, it's always good to have you on TVO. Nice to see you again.
Nice to be here, Steve.
We should let people know right away that if they go to our website, they will see a number of the interviews that we've done on the past on the military applications of drones. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about a brave new world. And I wonder when people who do what you do started thinking of drones with this other application in mind.
I think last year, as the holiday shopping season started to pick up, certainly both for kids and for adults, there was a wide range of toys that are drones, that are unmanned aerial vehicles with kind of like a glorified remote control car, except it can fly. And it has software and gyro stabilizers that actually make it fairly easy to pilot. But I think it's been this summer that I've been sort of joking with friends as the summer of the drone. Because my Facebook feed is full of people taking shots of their own property, taking shots of their vacation. So instead of the usual, say, camera phone shots, you're now seeing drone shots. And I think it's changing photography, the way in which social media is driven by images, the way YouTube plays a huge role in people's lives. So the idea that for a few $100s, you could get a camera that's attached to a drone that allows you to take some fantastic images and scenery.
And what's the appeal of that?
I think part of it is the bird's eye view, to literally do what humans have always sort of aspired to, which is to fly, which is to see the world from a different perspective. I think it's intoxicating from a technology sense. It, really speaks to the world of science fiction, that you could have your own robot that you could fly and check stuff out. But I think there is a kind of surveillance effect to it, the kind of little brothers and little sisters rather than big brother, because it's neat to be able to, whether it's for journalism, whether it's for monitoring your property, or whether it's just exploring parts of your city. I think there are a lot of people who are, again, intoxicated, seduced by the power that it affords.
Well, it's neat until you flip it over the neighbor's fence and start spying on them. More on that in a second here. Have you ever been to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas?
No.
That's something, we've had a number of people on our show go to that, and it's something to check out because apparently the Cubit drone was demonstrated there earlier this year, and it doesn't have cameras on it. It's got an 80,000 volt taser on it. Have a look. Roll tape.
You're on a large swath of property, someone crosses a line, sets off an alarm, the drone then deploys itself, it finds the person, it kind of buzzes around them, and then you get a phone notification and it says, shows you video from the drone, it says detain or authorize. And if you say detain, then at that point it goes back to fully autonomous, it's got its instructions, it notifies the authorities the pre-recorded message, and it tells you, to please kneel down on your knees on the ground and put your hands behind your head. If you were to run away from the property line, the situational analysis would say you're leaving, you're becoming less of a threat, and so it just hovers and stays there and it lets you go. If you were to continue to advance, or if you were to try to take out the drone, then it can make several semi-autonomous and autonomous decisions on whether it should tase you or not.
That's Cupid, which stands for the Chaotic Unmanned Personal Intercept Drone. What do we think?
It's actually not the first to be outfitted with a weapon, or to be sort of, it's kind of a hybrid, because it's not military and it's not personal either. It's sort of in the home security or the property security business. And actually, it's a scary trend, because these are robots we're talking about. I mean, we think of them as drones because of the unmanned aerial vehicle, but I like the words flying robot, because the fact is a robot can be programmed to do just about anything. In this case, it's a security application. I wouldn't be surprised, there's the concept of the helicopter parent who hovers over their child. Well, what about the childcare drone that follows your child throughout the course of the day? You want to be able to see what your child's doing? You log into the drone. There you go, a bird's eye view. So, we saw an example of facial recognition and a taser. There's been other drones that have been outfitted with paint pellet guns. And there's others that have been outfitted with actual weapons that fire bullets. And you look at the wiki weapons, which is 3D printed plastic weapons that have the same power as a gun. It's not hard to create add-ons for consumer drones that have the same capabilities.
Can this possibly be legal? You having your own 80,000 volt stun gun on your own drone?
Generally speaking, no. But the problem is there's a gray area around drones. There are regulations that govern their usage, and there are some regulations that govern their manufacture. But the fact is technology is outpacing the regulations. Technology is basically in unanticipated territory when it comes to how we regulate airspace. And there's two sides to this. There's the consumer level, in which you're basically flying below the radar. But there's also drones which can go into low Earth orbit, i.e. go above regulated airspace. So in that sense, it's an area in which we didn't think you could have robots that could go higher than planes, but they exist and they allow a whole other level of surveillance and communications.
Google and Amazon are all over this. What are they up to?
Well, Google and Amazon want to make it so that there's pure instant gratification for shopping, so that when you do that one-click purchase, you get your goods as fast as possible. The problem with that is a human may have issues, but a flying robot, well, they could deliver it in no time. Now, interestingly enough, Amazon announced their drone delivery program on April 1st. So I assumed for months that it must be a joke until Google announced that they had been working on it for 2 years, something called Project Wing. And where the Amazon drone is another quadrotor, it looks like most of the drones that
Another what, sorry?
Quadrotor, has 4 different propellers. It's fairly easy to fly, fairly standard. Google has a completely different design, a unique design, that it's able to take off vertically and then switch horizontal, and it has its own winch that allows it to lower and raise the delivery package. So these are 2 digital companies that are active in the e-commerce space saying, forget the logistics industry, forget trucks, forget UPS, forget Canada Post. We're going to have drones delivering your packages, and Google uses the phrase within minutes. So at the moment you purchase something, not within an hour, not within 30 minutes, within minutes. Of course, major downtown urban center, but nonetheless, they see robots as a way to give total consumer gratification.
Unbelievable.
Surreal is the word I use.
Surreal, okay. Here's University of Washington School of Law prof. Ryan Calla, who says the following. To a far greater degree than Amazon, Google has a history of working with policymakers and stakeholders on technology reform. Think net neutrality, fair use, privacy, and recently transportation. Adding Google's voice could have a significant effect on regulatory policy towards drones. You agree?
Absolutely. And I say that in the positive sense, that the drones have outpaced regulation. In fact, one could argue that regulatory agencies are hard-pressed to keep up with the rapid pace of technological change. It's why organizations like Google are helping to both develop that capacity, but also to write the policy. And that's maybe where there's concern, that there aren't the public interest groups, that there aren't politicians who are savvy enough or literate enough to be able to articulate these priorities. So it ends up being the industry self-regulating itself by writing its own rules. But let's face it, that's a commercial. The individual, the consumer, I don't think they'll care. I think that they'll get the drone and they'll do with it what they wish, often to great detriment or harm. But I think that's a broader culture or public awareness program in terms of how are drones used responsibly. Should you drink and drone? I mean, what are these kinds of cultures and practices? I think we're stumbling through the dark as we try to figure that out.
It's clearly perhaps one of the most disruptive technologies in the history of, can you say mankind anymore? Personkind, humankind, whatever. If you could shop online on Amazon and then 3 minutes later have the package delivered to your home by a drone, there is something kind of neat about that. Do you see a downside?
Well, the downside is the economic impact. I mean, economists have termed the phrase the Walmart effect to look at the big box stores' impact on Main Street. Well, what happens if you don't even need the local retailer, if the search engine can deliver all of your goods? And further, Amazon and Google are pursuing this concept called ambient commerce. Because as we all know from using the search engine, if you use it enough, it gets to know you. As you start typing your search request, Google anticipates that.
Yep.
Well, what if you order all your toilet paper from Google? Well, it turns out we use toilet paper in a fairly regular, predictable model, as with other household items. So the promise of ambient commerce is that Google will start delivering these products to your door without you having to order them.
They'll anticipate when you need it.
Yes, because if you're already buying your stuff from them, and you happen to be a creature of habit, as most humans are, then the drone isn't just about faster delivery. It's about loyalty. It's about making sure that you buy from them. And so the economic impact, whether it's the Main Street retailer or even Canadian big box chains, How do they compete unless they have their own drone air force to provide that same level of instant gratification?
Drone Air Force. So I'm picturing the Jetsons right now, which you're too young to remember, but
not at all.
Maybe you saw it in syndication.
Rosie the robot.
There you go. I mean, there's a brave new world coming where there are, what, tens of thousands of drones in the air? You're going to need air traffic controllers to make sure they don't crash into each other. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but...
But are the air traffic controllers human? Are the drones able to communicate with each other via their own peer-to-peer network that both ensures that they don't collide? But wouldn't it be more efficient if you could have drone relay? If the package, rather than delivered by a single drone, might be passed off in the air multiple times amidst smaller and medium. I mean, again, this is straight out of science fiction, but it's happening so fast. And these are multi-billion-dollar organizations which are prioritizing resources to make it happen. You know, we joke, but there will be thousands of drones in the air within 5 years.
Commercial drones apparently sell for $50,000 or $100,000. Camera stores are selling drones for $500 to $1,000. I want to show you this promotional video here for a miniature personal drone, which is priced in the vicinity of $100. Roll tape.
The MeCam launches from the palm of your hand and hovers instantly. The MeCam streams video to your phone or tablet to capture your every moment. Your new MeCam videos are easily shared on all social media platforms. No remote control. You take control of the copter with voice commands, or the MeCam automatically follows your every movement. All our innovations are ready for new licensing to manufacturers and social media companies. Get ready to MeCam yourself.
That was hilarious.
Thoughts?
Well, it's interesting they want to license it to social media companies, right? If this is your MeCam, then Instagram is perhaps the next level of drone photography, or Facebook will help you capture those moments. But I think it's a great example of disposable technology. I mean, the reason you can sell a drone for $100 is it's going to break. So you think the person buying the drone thinks, okay, I'll spend $100, I'll buy one. Realistically, they'll probably buy 5. Because the first one might pique their interest, allow them to take photos they couldn't otherwise. But that's the other side of the low-end drones, is they're designed to break. They're not designed to be very durable, and certainly their battery life is so short that it's a way to get people hooked. It's a way to get people interested.
But that's the point, right? That it foresees a world where not just companies, not just militaries, but each of us has our own drone.
I mean, it's funny, I don't know about your relationship with your kids. I know a lot of parents who have to text their kids to tell them it's time for dinner.
Everybody does that now.
Well, no, you send the drone. No, you say, okay, it's dinner time, drone. Go upstairs and tell them to come down for food. I mean, that was part of what that ad implied by voice commands. Instead of communicating directly, we'll use the drone as our major domo to handle the affairs of the household.
Okay, I know I should know this, but I'm not quite as tech savvy as you are. What's the Pirate Bay?
The Pirate Bay is the world's leading search engine for illicit content. Some non-illicit content, but mostly pirated goods. And they're very successful at avoiding all attempts to shut them down. And that's created a kind of technology liberation movement at the forefront that says, A, there shouldn't be any copyright, and B, all information should be available to everyone. And they've actually got an interesting drone project.
Tell me about it.
So the problem in countries like the United Kingdom is they block the Pirate Bay. It's not accessible. It's by law, all ISPs have to filter it and prevent their subscribers from getting it.
And do they?
They do, not successfully, but for the most part. So the Pirate Bay wants to have its own force, its own air force of drones, which would provide internet access that would be unfettered from any laws of copyright or intellectual property. So the idea is that you would have a peer-to-peer network of flying robots that would pass data amongst each other. Each would have 4G connectivity, so that anyone on the ground could connect to this network, and it would not only connect them to the internet, but it would connect them to the great world of pirated content, whether software, whether music, whether movies. So it's the idea of creating an alternate internet that does not have copyright and is driven by drones. And granted, this sounds like a wild idea, but it was actually achieved by a group called Electronic Disturbance in the UK who did it using Wi-Fi. in which they had drones flying over a neighborhood that were able to provide free internet access to anyone who is in range, and that mesh of drones is able to bounce data from robot to robot. Now, this is the world of piracy, but it turns out that Google and Facebook are pursuing the same thing. Facebook for purposes of connecting the developing world, and Google for purposes of connecting everyone and everything. They both competed over buying a company called Titan Aerospace. So Titan Aerospace makes these kinds of drones that I mentioned that can fly so high that they get above regulated airspace. But they still have transmission capabilities that allow them to fly upwards of 40, 50, 60,000 feet and provide internet access to people below. So what if Google decides that they want to use Toronto as a test bed and have their drones flying over the city and say, forget Rogers, forget Bell, we are providing free internet access to you as long as you use our services and watch our advertising. It would be a very popular internet service, and I absolutely expect both Google and Facebook to offer it. The question is where. Facebook says in the developing world. I think Google's going to do it first in the developed world.
So just in our last 30 seconds here, of all the different kinds of disruptive drone technology we have talked about today, which one do you think is the most likely to most fundamentally change our lives?
I think the biggest is the personal. That as more people get it, they'll change their habits, their lives, and in particular, it will allow for citizen science. Because we're talking about technology that could be gathering data, climate data, economic data, traffic data here in Ontario. So I think what will happen is that people will buy these $100, $200 drones, they'll take some photos, but then the real big app that will change the world is citizen science, is the research that can be done using thousands, tens of thousands of volunteers with their drones, climate change being a big one, but transportation and urban planning is a low-hanging fruit that certainly Southern Ontario needs.
Jesse, every time you come in here, I don't know whether to be dazzled or terrified about the future, maybe a little of both.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.